Picture with me, if you will. You are the model SIGEP chapter president, a business administration major with a 3.5 GPA, dreams of pursuing a career as an NBA sports agent, and even though you carry a stressful load of classes and extracurricular activities, you keep your priorities straight. You are a leader for your fraternity, even recruiting the chapter's first faculty fellow. You also hold executive board positions for other organizations on your campus. Maintaining a healthy and fit life is important to you, and you do it. Even with all this going on in your life, you still find time for your friends and your family. Now imagine again. It's 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning. You drive over to your girlfriend's apartment to pick her up for a brunch, excited about everything that day might hold for the two of you. You're pulling out of her apartment complex and making a left-hand turn when suddenly a car barrels down the hill and smashes into your vehicle. First responders get to the scene and can only describe it as horrific. In fact, they pronounce you dead at the scene. You and your girlfriend Reagan were without oxygen for almost 20 minutes. The jaws of life are required to free you both from the wreckage of the car. Ambulances rushed you both to the hospital. Somehow you mustered all the strength you could find to fight for life. And it worked. With the help of the medics, you were revived on the way. And a few miles down the road, word of the accident reached your fraternity brothers. Without a moment's hesitation, they rushed to the hospital to be by your side. But there was nothing they could do to help. But there was nowhere else they would dare be. Your brothers knew your family lived over 2,000 miles away in Alabama. Until they could travel to be by your side, your SIGEP family would stand guard. Your brothers needed to help in some way. Waiting and praying at the hospital just didn't seem like it was enough. Knowing your family was traveling from out of town and would need a place to stay, the brothers immediately began making arrangements for them. Brothers moved out of their own house and began cleaning this now empty home from top to bottom so your family would feel comfortable and have a place to stay upon the arrival in the city without enduring a financial burden. Your brothers also went out and bought your parents useful gift cards for everything from gasoline to Starbucks. The only thing your brothers wanted your family to worry about was your health. Turns out that your family lived in that house for over 3 weeks. Your brothers even went and picked up your dog Flex and took care of him as though it were their own. A few days later, you and Reagan are both still in very, very serious condition. You have 2 collapsed lungs, broken ribs, a collarbone, and a shattered pelvis, among other injuries. You and your chapter brothers, along with your girlfriend's sorority sisters, put together a vigil at the hospital. Over 1,000 people were there to support and pray for you both. In fact, SIGEP brothers from 5 neighboring chapters came to join the vigil on campus as well. They didn't know you, but they knew you were their brother, and you were in need. Your chapter made Live Strong type bracelets that said, "Don't stop believing," containing the Greek letters for SIGEP and Reagan's sorority, Gamma Phi Beta. The effort raised over $3,000 to help offset the cost of your family's travel and some of your medical expenses as well. After 12 weeks of being in the ICU and a total of 7 months in the hospital, you were finally released and able to travel back home to Alabama. even though you still suffered extensive injuries and brain damage. Although you were no longer physically close to your fraternity brothers back in California, you were never far away in their thoughts. In fact, every month since you've been back home, at least one brother has traveled the 2,100 miles to come see you and lift your spirit. Each brother saves his money and pays his own way to be with you. Your father was especially moved by the support witnessed from the fraternity brothers. Your dad said, and I quote, he had over 300 visitors within the first 3 days after the accident. The hospital officials had to ask us to minimize visitor contact. Phi Epsilon never stopped showing up though, even though they couldn't see you. Brothers spent countless hours reading and talking to my son, even though he was in a coma. We believe that these types of effort brought him back, and he is now alive and making continuous improvements. On behalf of my family, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for all the great support you provided in his road to recovery. Without the love and support of Phi Epsilon, Chris would not have survived, nor continue to make the remarkable progress. End quote. When you were elected president of your chapter, the executive board held a transition retreat. Each officer was asked to create 3 personal and 3 Phi Epsilon goals for the year. You said, I have only one goal, and that goal is for us to win a Buchanan Cup in Texas. This year, in your honor, the brothers rallied and together submitted an application, the first in your chapter's history. As part of that application process, your chapter counselor submitted a letter of recommendation. In that letter, he said, during the initial few days following the accident, the chapter was forced into a situation of emotional loss and spiritual chaos. Overnight, I saw the chapter culture change. Men cried on each other's shoulders and relied on their brothers. For many, this was the first time they truly needed the support of their chapter just to make it through the next day. And then, like a matchstick struck in darkness, the internal fire for excellence was suddenly rekindled in the chapter. Following in the footsteps of their wounded leader, they literally put aside their toys and asked what they could do to make the chapter better than it was before, all in Chris's name. I saw apathetic men step up and take leadership positions. I witnessed emotional highs where men rallied their brothers to study longer, train harder, and put the good of the chapter before their own. I was impressed, a little surprised, and very proud. Also in the application your brothers wrote, Chris inspired this chapter to greatness, whether through his passion for Phi Epsilon or his desire to always be improving himself and others. It was his fighting spirit most of all that helped this chapter move forward through this time of great sadness. During this time, we constantly visited Chris, wrote him letters, and raised money to help take some of the financial stress off of his parents. It was then we truly realized what brotherly love is. In response to the support of his chapter, Chris Lee has set a goal, another Phi Epsilon goal for himself, and that is to be on stage in 2015 at the 54th Grand Chapter Conclave. For all these acts of brotherly love, our 2013 Honor of Philias is presented to the California Beta Gamma chapter at the University of California, Riverside. Would the brothers from this chapter please come forward to accept this award?